everybody, for taking some time to be with us today, and thank you to Sarah, Jonathan for pulling this event together for all of us to learn together. As Jonathan said, please feel free to use the chat and ask questions along the way. I love to make it as interactive as possible, so don't hesitate to put your thoughts and your feedback and your questions into the chat. I know this is a healthcare focused audience. I did want to promote an event that we have happening this week. We have one of our great partners, Swoop Analytics. This is their second annual Yammer Festival that they're running, and one of the sessions that we'll have later on this week is with Kaiser Permanente. So Jennifer Palham from Kaiser Permanente will be joining to share a little bit about their experience of using Yammer, some of the best practices and things that they've learned from implementing Yammer at their organization. So be a great opportunity for you to learn from another peer organization. I put the link there. I don't know if Sarah or Jonathan could maybe put that short link, aka.ms/Yammer Festival, in the chat for quick access. You can still register. It's a virtual event. We're running it across 3 different time zones. So depending on where you might be calling in from, we have a time zone to meet with you or for you to join. Jennifer will be presenting in our America's time zone. So if you wanted to participate in that, you're more than welcome to. So I wanted to talk a little bit about today about how we're bringing Yammer more closely into our overall employee experience that we're delivering to many of you. When we talk with a lot of our customers, these are some of the things that we hear from them when they talk about wanting to create a compelling employee experience for their employees. In the time that we're in today, where people are struggling with being remote, they're struggling with being new at an organization, being able to make new connections. But when we think about what it means to have a truly engaged employee at an organization, these are just some of the things that we hear. They want to be able to bring their best self to work, that their voice is heard, that they're encouraged to build meaningful connections in their organization, that they can feel included in their company's culture. They know who their leaders are. They know how to connect with their leaders. They know what they stand for, both personally and professionally. They understand what their priorities are from their leaders. As an employee, they know where to go to find answers to problems. They're encouraged and they're trusted, in fact, to be able to share their own knowledge with the broader organization. I think all these really lead towards a person that comes to work energized and empowered to bring meaningful work to you and your organizations. We recently did a work trends index. And if you just do a search for Microsoft Work Trends Index, you can get a copy of this study that we did recently. But these are just some of the trends that we pulled out from that research study. We researched and surveyed about 30,000 employees across 30 different countries just to understand what are some of the themes around the employee experience that people are having today. And just to call out a couple of data points, I'm not going to go through all of these things, but you can go, like I said, you can go and download the full study. But 2 things I want to call out specifically that I think are pertinent to the conversation we're going to have today is this second one here. 54% of managers feel like leadership is out of touch with employees, and 74% feel like they can't influence any change at all. And so, I'm a manager here at Microsoft. I fall in sort of that middle level as well. And I happen to work for an organization where I feel like leadership is pretty well in touch. But I think in the majority of the organizations that our customers are in, there's a sort of disconnect between the top and the bottom of the organization that could still use some help. At the bottom, you see here this other one, 43% of leaders say relationship building is the greatest challenge with hybrid and remote work, that employees feel less included and they have weaker relationships than in the past. During the pandemic, Teams has been a godsend for many of us, right? It's been a great place for us to be able to connect with the project teams that we work with on a day-to-day basis, for those sort of goal-oriented teams. It's been great. Teams, though, I think has been great at being able to reinforce those existing connections that we have. But Teams itself doesn't do a great job at expanding my network and connecting with people that go beyond the sort of day-to-day people that we work with. And this is called out here with the statistic that 43% of leaders say that relationship building is the greatest challenge that they have. So how do you help employees within your organization, especially for those of you that have large employee demographics? How do you help them create networks within their organization? And this is really where the overall Viva employee experience platform comes into play. Viva being the platform that we are bringing to our customers to really create this integrated employee experience. And we think about these things in a couple of different buckets. The first one is around connection. Helping, like we just talked about, helping our employees to create connections, create networks within their organization. Insights, having deeper insights and knowledge about productivity, how their individual productivity is happening, and how team productivity is being impacted. Purpose, and that's where Viva Goals comes in. How creating organization and team-wide goals that you can track towards. And then growth. That's certainly an area where things like Viva Topics and Viva Learning play a part. We're not going to go through all of these areas by any means. There are other sessions that you can learn more about some of these other areas. We're really going to hone in on this Viva Engage piece and talk about some of the things that we're working on to really help your employees create that sense of connectivity, create that sense of belonging within your organizations. So what we've been doing over time, over the last couple of years, is really trying to bring Yammer more closely into our Viva employee experience platform. As you saw from that very first depiction of that employee with the different sort of bubbles around her, those are some things that we feel Yammer has contributed well towards for many of our customers for many, many years now. When we think about what Yammer has been for our customers, I think these 4 boxes depict a lot of what we've seen a lot of our customers getting out of Yammer, and having it in place for employees to feel like they can express and share their best selves, coming together in community to have that sense of belonging, have that sense of connectedness to something that's bigger than them. Knowing who their leaders are and being able to connect directly with those leaders so that they can understand where they fit in the overall mission of the organization. And then being able to have this broad platform to be able to ask questions, be able to get answers to questions, be able to crowdsource new ideas. These are all things that Yammer has created and built over the last 10 plus years that Yammer has been in existence. And because these have been capabilities that many of our customers have been leveraging, we felt it was super important to make sure that these capabilities are an integrated part of our Viva platform, which is why we're going through this process of bringing Yammer into Viva and rebranding it into this new experience called Viva Engage. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about branding here as we proceed here. With Viva Engage, we want Viva Engage to be this place to, like I said, connect and empower people so that they can really contribute and express themselves more fully across your organization. Now, as I talked about with the new experience, with Teams is really, I talked a little bit about sort of the why, right? With why we want to bring Yammer into Viva. It's really a core part of the overall employee experience that we want to deliver to you as our customers. But there's also a little bit of an experience, sort of a user experience component that we want to address here as well, with Teams being the platform by which we are delivering many of our Viva experiences. So, for example, like Viva Learning. Viva Learning exists as an experience inside of Teams today. You see this sort of subtle background header. You see this top-level navigation. You have Viva Insights also as an experience inside of Teams, where you can sort of understand what's happening from a productivity perspective for yourself and your teams. We also want to bring that same sensibilities, some of the same design sensibilities from across some of those other Viva applications into the experience that we have here in Teams. So in the past, you might be familiar, we had what was called the Communities app in Teams. That was a great way for people to experience the goodness of discovery and communities through the Teams experience. But like I said, we wanted to create a much more unified experience with some of the other Viva tools. So that's why you see this little bit of a facelift of the Communities app in Teams. So that, again, that same subtle background header that you saw when we were in Insights and Learning, that very consistent top-level navigation for communities and storylines and the home feed. All of this under the covers is still Yammer. So for those of you that have been using Yammer for quite some time, your investments are not gone to waste at all. In fact, it's still very much mirrored and reflected in this Viva Engage experience. So the feed experience is still very much powered by the algorithm that we have behind the scenes to understand the different types of communities that you interact with and the people that you interact with. So the feed is still very much rich and machine learning driven. All the communities that you're already a part of, we create a very similar experience for you to access those communities as well. So rest assured, any investment that you've made in Yammer will continue to light up and continue to light up those scenarios that I talked about at the beginning. I want to talk about some new capabilities that we've also brought to both Viva Engage and Yammer. And you know, all of the capabilities I'm going to talk about here, we plan on bringing to the experience, whether you're experiencing them inside of Teams or whether you're experiencing them on the web or any of our other endpoints as well. One of them is Storyline. Storyline was really born out of talking with a lot of our customers during the pandemic, and specifically talking with our leaders at customers. Leaders, they would often say, I have this message I need to get out. I want to assure people during the pandemic that they're safe and that we can keep them safe. But they sometimes posting to a community didn't match the sensibilities that they had with being able to broadcast a message to the broader organization. They said, we want to be able to build a follower,ship. We want to leverage the follower,ship capabilities that exist in Yammer and be able to broadcast in that way. So really what Storyline is about an individual being able to post to their own profile page or to their, in this case, their own storyline. And for leaders, an ability to be able to, like I said, create that following, but also be able to broadcast a message that gets broad reach across your organization. And some of the things that we've seen, some leaders use Storyline for, and I'm going to share a couple of examples that we've seen here at Microsoft and are also indicative of what we've seen from our customers. But using it as a way to share updates. We have some customers that have some leaders at customers that have started to use Storyline as a way to say, hey, I just had this meeting with a customer. Here were some of the insights. Maybe they'll share a photo of visiting a warehouse or a plant location or a customer location. They'll share insights about that. And the beauty of this is that the reach of this, like I talked about earlier, is that you post it in one place, but you get distributed reach across places like Teams, across Outlook, of course, in Yammer, and increasingly in other surfaces as well. For example, if I post to my Storyline, one of the things that we're working on is that when you hover over, let's say if I hover over Jonathan's people card, for example, that I'll see that he's recently made a Storyline post, so that distributes the reach of that post even greater. So here are just some examples of things that you can consider about what you might post to your Storyline. Maybe you want to celebrate a milestone, celebrate a promotion. Here recently, I've seen some people just posting to their Storyline about some work accomplishments that they've had that they're proud of. Like I said, sharing a recap of various highlights. I'll show you some examples of that here. This is Scott. Scott is one of our engineering leaders here at Microsoft. Last October was our annual Microsoft Give campaign, and he was actually using his Storyline to let people know that he's going to match contributions that people make during the Give campaign. And you'll notice, Scott has 173 followers here, but look at the reach that he was able to get from his Storyline post. Over 8,000 people in the organization saw this post, and it actually sort of went viral within the organization that he was matching these posts. So a great opportunity for us to expand the reach of our giving campaign in this case. This is Jeff Teeper. Some of you might know Jeff. Jeff is our corporate vice president, both for Microsoft Teams and SharePoint. But one of the things that Jeff does that I think is really cool is that every Friday he does what's called a Fast Friday update. And it's a 5-minute video that he posts to his Storyline just saying, here's some of the customers I met with. Here's some of the conferences that we're preparing for and some of the content that we're preparing for upcoming conferences. Here's some product decisions that we're reconciling or trying to make. So it's a great insight into what a leader at Microsoft does, and he does it in a very visual and very authentic way. Catherine, some of you might be familiar with Microsoft's Fast Track organization. Fast Track is our deployment arm that helped many of you deploy our Microsoft services, and Catherine is our corporate vice president over our Fast Track organization. But Catherine does a very similar thing on her Storyline, where she's posting a video just talking about some of the highlights for her during a given week, or in some cases a given month. What are some of the things that she's focused on from a diversity and inclusion perspective? If you were also to look at Catherine's Storyline Storyline, you'd also see some examples of where she's posting very personal posts. She posts a picture of her daughters returning to school right around the back to school time. So you get a perspective of Catherine as a mother, a working mother with daughters. But she often posts other sort of personal elements as well that I think lend themselves to as getting to know leaders in our organization, getting a holistic sort of 360 view of what they represent, both personally and professionally. Storyline's been a great way for us to get to know our leaders better. So Viva Engage. So the Viva Engage in Teams experience is available to you all today. There's some statistics here that you can see about just some of the broad connections that that we're able to see across the hundreds of thousands of customers that use our products on a day-to-day basis. But the Viva Engage experience is available to you in Teams today. For those of you that already have the Communities app installed, it automatically updated for you, and any new updates, of course, will just happen in place as well. We did release Storyline. Storyline is a capability that you have today. In some cases, you might need to enable it for your tenants, but the Storyline capability is available. There's also a component, a corresponding component that will come with Stories. That will come with Storyline called Stories. There's a demographic that exists in our workplace today that is used to a much more visual representation of being able to contribute or being able to consume knowledge. And so Stories will be a much more sort of media-centric, media-focused ability to share a point of view. It could be maybe you want to share a video, or maybe you want to share a photo, but Stories will be a complementary capability to Storyline as well. Stories is available in our public preview today. Again, it would be something that you would need to enable for your tenant if you don't see it today, but it is something that you can preview today. So we're really excited about the capability that Storyline and Stories will present to our customers, specifically for leaders and some of the scenarios that you talked about, that I talked about previously. I'm going to talk about going forward how we're going to build on some of those capabilities specifically for some of the leadership scenarios. Jonathan, I just want to pause and just take a look at the chat just to see if there's any questions that I might want to address before we go forward.
Yeah, I think there was one in there, kind of, it's the same old adage of, hey, there's lots of pinning right on the left-hand rail. There's a lot of apps that, do you have any insight that you can maybe share with us on potentially what's coming roadmap?
Yeah, and Sarah starts to address it as well. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Candy, that the left rail could get overloaded with apps and things. There's a couple of things that we are looking at, and like I said, Sarah mentioned some explorations that we're doing with Viva Connections as sort of being a home experience for some of these Viva experiences. But we're also looking at a top-level navigation that's I don't have that I can show you right away, but just as an example here. So you notice in the new Viva Engage experience, for those of you that are familiar with Yammer, we move the list of communities that you're a part of from the left side over to the right rail, and you can pop it out. I don't have it to pop out here, but you can actually pop this out and see the communities that you're a part of. But what that actually will do is it also creates a little bit of space over here on the left rail. We're up here in the left navigation, or on the navigation bar. We're looking at having some top-level navigation to be able to navigate to some of the other Viva experiences through a top-level navigation that would exist up in this top left area. So we're still working through how that's going to look and what that's going to look like. We want to make sure that it's a coherent experience, Candy, but you make a great point that left rail can get cluttered. So we are looking at some other options to make the navigation experience a bit more clean.
That's great. And then I kind of was pinged privately, but we might as well address it for the whole group here. Yammer.com and Yammer apps. I know we're talking more Engage here, Steve, but for mobile, iOS, Android, Mac, they still remain standalone experiences. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, we are constantly exploring what it would look like to rebrand these experiences. We understand that we need to make sure that these are consistent, especially for many of your end users. So that's something that we're continuing to explore. You can make an educated guess that at some point that we would reconcile those brands, but I don't have anything to announce right now as far as timing or anything like that. But we want to do what's right for you and make sure that that we make it clear for you and for your employees. So please continue to give us feedback on that. But it is something we're thinking through.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
As you can imagine, it's not a simple find and replace to do. At Microsoft, these branding exercises are challenging, but we again want to do what's right for you all.
And one last question just came in. The Engage experience in the mobile app, how does that compare to the Yammer mobile app?
Yeah, good question, Taylor. So I'd say the experience of the Engage app inside of Teams is, I'd say it's, you can still certainly post messages, and consumption is great. Like you can consume and react to messages. I think those are all sort of native inside of the Engage app in Teams. There is going to be some places where the Yammer mobile app excels from a from the experience of having a more native experience. For example, uploading images or uploading videos are just going to be better. It's going to be more seamless in the native Yammer app versus the Engage app, because the Engage app inside of Teams is sort of an embedded app inside of that Teams experience. So you lose a little bit of fidelity on some experiences. So overall, the Yammer mobile app is going to be the most robust experience. And like we were just talking about with the other conversation that Jonathan brought up, from a branding perspective, we'll think about how we make that more consistent. But I'd say overall, the Yammer mobile app is going to be slightly more robust.
Great.
All right.
I'll jump in if there's more questions. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for those questions, folks. Keep them coming. Just to level set, these are just a short list of things that we've recently brought to the Yammer and Engage experiences. I talked about the new Engage, the new look for Viva Engage and Storyline and Stories, but also the ability to upvote answers. For those of you familiar with the mobile app, or I'm sorry, with the I was looking at Krista's question here. I'll answer that in just a moment. The ability to ask questions in Yammer. Now you have the ability to upvote answers. So if you need to sort of crowdsource the best answer within a question thread, you can upvote answers. You have the ability to mark official communities. You can now edit attachments. So if you uploaded a picture and it was the wrong picture and you need to remove it and put the right picture on it, you can now edit that attachment. Things like dark mode, conversation, insights, nested replies. These are all things that we've recently released. Krista, to answer your question, no, there are no plans for the Yammer mobile app to go away. I think we were just talking about it in terms of, will it be rebranded or will the name be changed at some point? That might be in the cards, but no, the Yammer mobile app will continue to exist. Yes. I'm going to switch context just slightly here. For those of you that are familiar with the Viva model, you'll know that there are a set of sort of premium capabilities that come with a Viva Suite license. So everything that I've talked about so far with both Yammer and Viva Engage are capabilities, everything that I showed on the previous slide with things that we've recently released, all of those things are available as part of your existing Microsoft 365 license. So if you have E3 or E5 or any of the frontline worker SKUs, everything that I've talked about so far is included in your existing Microsoft 365 investment. I want to transition and talk about some of the new premium capabilities that we will be offering that will be part of the overall Viva Suite license. So the things I'm going to talk about going forward will be part of an additional license that will be required. But when we think about what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do, they're all in service of these four scenarios that we talked about earlier, with strengthening relationships, building communities, helping to help your leaders better engage with employees, and also help your employees better get access to knowledge and answers within your organization. So these are the things that we're really focused on with some of our premium Viva Suite capabilities. So let's dive into some of these capabilities. The first of which, let's talk about some of the leader scenarios that we're focused on. So we talked a little bit about Storyline earlier, and one of the things that we really want to, Storyline is great when you can have a defined audience around it, when you can have people that can consume your content, consume your messages. And so one of the things that we'll be delivering as part of the new premium experience is an ability for you, number one, to define leaders within your organization. So maybe it's of course, it could be your CEO, I'm guessing, but maybe there are other leaders that you want to identify within your organization as leaders in your organization. And you'll also have an ability to set up the audiences for those leaders. So let's say you identify your chief financial officer as a leader in your organization. You'll be able to say, everybody in finance automatically is an audience for that leader, so that when that CFO posts a message to their Storyline, those people in finance can automatically be notified of that. So there's this notion of auto follow or auto subscription that we'll create as part of the premium experience. I'm going to dig into these two areas more specifically here. But one of the areas that a lot of our customers do is they do these sort of yam jam, well, I should say AMA. If any of you are on Reddit, those of you are familiar with AMAs, there's a sort of AMA experience, or some of our customers call them yam jams. It's these experiences where they might bring a leader or a subject matter expert online for a certain period of time and be able to ask and answer questions, either synchronously or in some cases asynchronously over a certain period of time. I'll talk a little bit more about leader analytics as we go on here. But just diving into this AMA experience a little bit further, like I said, we've had a lot of our customers do these AMA experiences, but we want to make them a bit more robust and a bit more managed for you. So as a leader, you could set up an AMA, or maybe a delegate of that leader could set up an AMA experience here, and you'd have this dedicated AMA page. And some things that you'll notice here is that you'll be able to moderate those questions and answers that come in. So as a delegate, or maybe as the leader itself, you can review those questions and publish those questions to the AMA feed itself. As I scroll down through the feed experience, you'll see what the question and answering experience looks like. But also we'll start to incorporate this ability to upvote questions in the AMA. So if Jonathan sees this question here and he wants to also get an answer to it, he could upvote that answer so that he can, or I'm sorry, upvote that question. So it sort of raises the popularity of that question itself. After the event, we know that a lot of our corporate comms friends, they'll need to do a summary of the event. We hear this a lot from our customers. After they do an AMA or after they do a yam jam, they need to report back to their leadership what happened during the event. So we'll provide some automation around an AMA summary so that you understand how many people participated, how many views were there, what were some of the top conversations, so that you can initially start to create a summary that you can send to any stakeholders that might be interested in what happened during the scope of the AMA. So that's AMAs. The next area that we're looking at from this leadership perspective is this leadership corner perspective. And this is important because going back to something that we talked about earlier, we hear from people that, back to that stat around managers feeling that leaders are disconnected from the rest of the organization. What Leadership Corner will do is that it'll create a very bespoke place for you to see the leaders that are very specific to you, based on where you sit within the organization. So as an example, Sarah and I sit in two different parts of Microsoft. So we're going to see a different set of leaders in our leadership corner based on where we sit for us inside of Microsoft. And again, this is where that leadership identification, this is where that audience identification that you'll do up front will show up in this leadership corner space. So in this case, I'm seeing some of the leaders that have been highlighted for me, Carol, Bruno, Beth, among them. And when I land on this leadership corner page, I see an aggregate view of where these folks are contributing across the entirety of the network. So I have to go across and find out where Carol's posting, but we aggregate all that leader activity into one place. So here you see Bruno has posted something to his storyline. So we aggregate that here into this leadership corner space. Beth has also posted something to her storyline. So we aggregate it here as well. So even if they were participating in, let's say, a community, if Beth had posted it into, let's say, women at Contoso community, we would see those posts here. So again, the beauty of this is that it's tailored to you as an employee to see who your leaders are, number one, because we know that that's important, but even more important, understanding what's important of those leaders, and then being able to create that two-way dialogue, create that two-way connection that we know a lot of our customers are trying to do with their leaders and with their employees. So that's what Leadership Corner will do. Now, with this, we want to provide a set of rich analytics for you to understand what's happening around some of these leader engagements. The first of which, you'll notice that these are some personal analytics that you'll be able to see. And this will be available for each individual to understand how their contributions are matching up across their engagement in Yammer and Viva Engage. So I'll be able to see what's the reach of my post been? What are how many viewers? What's my audience? How many people have I reached in my audience? What are some of the top conversations that I've participated in? Where are most of the reactions coming from? Where's the top comments? Where do I engage in most? Is it in communities or is it in storylines? I'll get a breakdown of that from a personal perspective. We'll also provide a set of audience analytics. Now, these are going to be available to both the leader and any delegates that that leader has identified. So for back to that CFO example, the CFO would be able to see what's happening within his or her finance organization. I'll be able to see the sentiment within the organization. What are some of the themes that are coming out across my organization? I'll be able to click into each of these topics, or these not capital T Viva topics, but just the sentiment topics here, to see what conversations are associated with that sentiment. So in this case, work-life balance. What are some of the conversations that are contributing to that work-life balance sentiment? Again, what's been the audience reach of some of the posts across the finance organization? What are some of the top conversations, and what's the sentiment associated with those posts? Where are these posts coming from? Are they discussion? Are they praise? What are they? What communities are these posts coming from? So you're going to get a much more holistic view of where engagement is happening across this leader's organization. Before I move on to the next phase, which is campaigns, I'll take any questions around this whole sort of leadership connection scenario, or these leadership connection capabilities. I'll go back and just see.
Yeah, we have a question from Cameron, Steve, more, I guess, around the analytics piece on attachments or links. Can you see the views of the specific attachment? So if somebody clicks on that attachment, can you see how many times somebody has done that, or who actually clicked the attachment?
Yeah, right now the best way to do that, all of the files that are stored in Yammer are stored in SharePoint. So in SharePoint, you can see a lot of that data inside of SharePoint. We do have some third-party partners that do provide some sort of out-of-the-box analytics. So if you want more detailed or more of a roll-up of that, Cameron, you could look to some of our third-party analytics partners to do some of that.
And then are these analytics, can they be available for kind of a team, I guess, of folks versus an individual? Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So like I mentioned earlier, that the individual leader would have access to these things, but also delegates. We're also I'm not going into a lot of detail of it today, but we are going to be introducing a new sort of corp comms role that will also have access to some of this analytics as well. There was a question back from Eric about official communities, and good to see you here, Eric. Thanks for joining us today. What are your thoughts on Yammer teams on official communities? So yeah, for those of you that aren't familiar with official communities, there is the ability for you to mark certain communities as official. What that does is it puts a little blue badge next to it. You don't have to pay $8 a month for it. You can just put the blue badge next to it, and it marks it as official. That's a designation that you can make at a network level. So a network admin has to take that action for you to mark that community as official. So maybe it's I don't know, human resources community, for example, and you want to say this is the official place for you to get human resource related answers, then you can mark that as official. So just to explain what it is, Eric's question is, are we going to be improving and building off of that? That is something we're going to continue to look at, Eric. I don't have anything to officially say, is going to improve as a result of official communities, but things that we're looking at are things like the search. So if you're searching for human resources, for example, that we want that official community to bubble to the top or be at the top. We want to be able to highlight that, maybe when you're looking to join new communities, maybe we'll highlight the official communities that exist within your organization. So those are some things that we're looking at, over the next, I'd say 6-9 months. We're going to be spending more time again in the communities area. And so those are things that we'll revisit at that time.
Yeah, just a couple more, maybe just because of timing. Is there any type of governance in here, Steve, as far as monitoring or removing comments if inappropriate?
Yeah, out of the box, we have what's called keyword monitoring. So there's a utility, an admin utility. You can go in and populate with any number of terms or phrases or words. You can put regex codes for social security numbers and credit card numbers to be alerted of when those things are being used. So that's available today. For those of you that might be on E5, that might have E5 licenses, there's what's called communications compliance. I would say that's keyword monitoring on steroids. I'd much more recommend the communications compliance capability if you have access to it with E5. You'll be able to do much more powerful type of keyword monitoring through sort of some machine learning and AI, but also workflow as well will be much better with communications compliance. So if Jonathan or Sarah can find a link to it and put a link to communications compliance in the chat, it'd be great. Otherwise, I can come back and do it later. But those are probably the two primary ways that you could do those things, Jonathan.
Okay. We'll capture the rest of these questions and get them answered. Just due to timing, we'll kind of move on from here.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. The next area that we're focused on is campaigns, and this is another area that we see a lot of our customers using Yammer for. Maybe many of you do. Many of you that are using Yammer also do the same. You know, you can use a hashtag, right, and it connects up conversations across the network. Again, similar to like what you saw with the AMA capability, we just want to make this a much more robust and managed experience for you and for you and those that are managing these various campaigns. First of all, what you see here is that there'll be a dedicated campaign landing page. So if you've created a sort of a hashtag driven campaign, you can then be able to come to this page and see all the activity around this particular campaign itself. I mentioned, I teased that corporate comms role, but part of what that corp comms role will have is the ability to manage these campaigns across the network. So you'll be able to define those campaigns, and then this will be a sort of a dashboard for you to see the campaigns that are currently happening. As you define that campaign, you'll be able to define a goal for that campaign. A lot of times you create these campaigns and you want to track it towards a specific goal. I talked about our Give campaign that we did here at Microsoft recently, where we wanted to track donations, or maybe you want to track volunteer hours. So maybe it's something philanthropic. In this case, maybe we want to create sort of a recognition campaign. So we want to track against the number of praise that's being given across the network. So here's just an example of where Lydia, maybe she posts to her storyline, maybe she's going to praise Ashley, and she hashtags it with this hashtag above and beyond. And similar to what we were just talking about with that official checkmark, we'll put an official checkmark behind this hashtag, indicating that it's sort of an official campaign that's being run. So I can post this message, and it'll, of course, post to my storyline. It'll be distributed across the feeds and things just like I talked about earlier. But we'll also aggregate Lydia's storyline post to this above and beyond campaign page itself. So regardless of whether Lydia posted it from her storyline or whether she posted it in a community, we'd aggregate all those hashtag above and beyond posts into this one place. So you can see across the network where people are recognizing people and participating in this above and beyond campaign. I can follow this campaign. So as a person that follows it, this also gives me an ability to amplify and spread the word and let other people know that this campaign is happening. So when I follow it, we're going to provide an opportunity for you to have what we call a sash at the top of your profile, and maybe a little badge on your profile page. We want these things to be a bit viral, right? These are campaigns that you want other people participating in. So, you know, part of the benefit here is letting other people know and amplifying the availability of this campaign. And just like you saw with the analytics that we provided for Leadership Corner, we want to provide a rich set of analytics for you to understand what's happening around the campaign. How many people are participating in the campaign? How many followers are there? What are some of the top conversations that are happening across your campaign? Who are some of the top content creators? And in fact, we'll provide an opportunity right from here for you to acknowledge that person. So maybe right from here, I want to acknowledge Alan. I can click this acknowledge and it'll open a praise, and I can praise Alan for his contributions toward the campaign. What are the reactions that people are posting in the campaign? Where are the campaign posts coming from? Is it primarily driven through communities? Is it primarily driven through storyline? But you'll get some information about where people are coming from. And again, where are the followers coming from? Are they coming from the campaign page? Are they coming from a feed? Wherever it might be. So, and how are leaders participating as well? So those are some things that we're working on with the campaign. Like I said, other things that we want to continue to build on with this is that, especially from an analytics perspective, we want to provide you with great data, but we also want to provide you with actionable data. So over the next couple of quarters, some of the things that you'll see on top of this are not just the data, but we'll provide you some advice or guidance on what you might do as a result of having the data, maybe like similar to that acknowledge piece in that screenshot above, where you might take an action directly from the data itself. So we don't want to provide data just for data's sake, but over time you'll see us providing with some level of guidance so that you can actually take action on the data itself. All right, so the last area that we are focused on is this ability for your employees to better find answers within your organization. I heard a statistic recently that at Microsoft, since 2020, we've hired something like 50,000 new employees at Microsoft. And I think about some of those new employees that come in and the struggle that some of those folks might have in just finding answers to questions. I'm sure many of you in your organization sort of face the same thing where, especially many of us being remote, who do you go to ask a question? There can be nothing more unengaging than not knowing where to go to get an answer to a question, or asking a question and not getting an answer to it. So part of what we're trying to solve for is helping to better connect people with knowledge and answers within your organization. So this new answers experience that we'll be providing through Viva Engage will first present you with a feed of questions and answers. And this will be, first of all, based on topics that you're engaged with or topics that you might be following. Additionally, we'll use other signals to determine who you are within the organization to match you up with a set of questions and answers in your feed that maybe you can help answer, or maybe they have a set of question and answer pairs that help you do your job. So the feed experience will be very much machine learning and algorithmically driven. One of the first jobs that we have with answers is to prevent you from having to ask the question at all. So our publisher will actually use some machine learning to do some semantic search to understand and to do a search to see if there are already questions and answers that already exist within your organization. So I don't have to ask the question. I can maybe just see one of the questions that already exists with the best answer, get the answer that I need, and be able to move on with my day. So we'll use an element of machine learning to do some predictive interpretation of the question. If you want to go ahead and ask the question, certainly we'll give you that ability. And this is where we start to integrate more deeply with other parts of Viva, where you can connect a Viva topic to this particular question. Connecting a Viva topic to this question provides other superpowers, where we through Viva topics, we understand who the experts are around a given topic. So then we can route that question to an expert that might already be able to answer your questions. We can expedite the answering of a given question. So connecting it and attaching a Viva topic to the question will be super important as part of this overall flow and experience. We'll show a feed of activity for you. So these are going to be questions that you're actively participating in, or maybe you've asked the question yourself and you want to be able to get updates on it. So the My Activity feed will show you a feed of those questions that you're participating in. We'll take a lot of design elements that we already have today with our existing questions experience, things like the best answer, things like being able to upvote those answers, but also incorporating that upvote of the questions themselves. We also know that recognition and awards for people's contributions will be important here. So we'll incorporate an element of badging here. So the more you're participating, the more you're helping your colleagues, the more ability you have to get these badges that are part of the system as well. And just like all the other areas that we talked about earlier, we're going to provide a rich set of analytics. So as an individual, I can see the number of people that I've helped. We'll provide some information about the amount of time that we've saved people, or the engagement that I've had around specific questions. What type of people have I helped? What department? What's the engagement look like? What topics have I engaged in most? And then at a broader administrative level, this level of analytics wouldn't be available to everybody, but just the administrators of this answers platform. You'll be able to sort of see the overall efficacy of having an answers platform like this. How much time is being saved overall in the organization? What's the breakdown of engagement across the questions and answers that are happening? What are the most active questions within this platform? So you'll see here, I won't go through all of these, but you see, who are the top engaged people, who are the top badge earners, what are the top topics that are being participated in within this answers platform. So a really rich set of capabilities for you to understand what the activity looks like across the answers platform. And I'll just go through this quickly and then I'll stop for questions here. But just to give you a sense of timing, again, all of these areas that I focused on around leadership connection, campaigns, and the answers platform that I just talked about would be part of our Viva Suite license. Our plan is for these experiences to GA in the January, February, late January, maybe early February timeframe is our current plan. So we're moving really quickly. We actually just deployed a lot of these capabilities into our Microsoft environment. So Sarah, Jonathan, and others from Microsoft that might be on this call, you now have access to a lot of these capabilities here in our Microsoft tenant, and we are quickly going to be moving to general availability in the first part of the next calendar year. So leadership, campaigns, and then also answers will also be available at that time. So I will leave this slide up here just as a reference point, and then I'll pause here for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. A bunch came in. I'll just sort of blast a few, and then we'll kind of, again, answer anything offline here. Our official communities with the blue check mark and the campaign features only available with the premium Viva suite.
Yeah, I'll try to make a very clear distinction, Taylor. The official communities is available as part of your existing Microsoft 365 licensing. The campaigns feature that I talked about will be part of the Viva Suite license. Hopefully that's clear.
Yep. Another sort of licensing question, seeing sort of a theme here, might as well ask it, is so these folks currently don't have Yammer enabled for their E3 users. Would they be able to use Viva Engage without E3, E5?
So I think I read that a little bit differently, but let me just make sure I'm clear. So what I see Matt wrote is that they have E3, which means they are licensed for Yammer and the baseline Viva Engage capabilities that I talked about before the break, that break I made for premium. So yes, you can access. So remember, Yammer equals Viva Engage. So if you've licensed your users in the admin center, if you've licensed your users for Yammer, then they would be able to access all the those Viva Engage baseline capabilities, storyline and stories and so forth. For some of the premium capabilities, that's a different license, but hopefully that's clear for Matt.
Yeah, just a bunch of other kind of licensing that we'll sort of maybe address offline. I guess just to hit home, just to make sure everybody on the call, it looks like, Heather has a question again around how does Viva Engage compare or integrate with Viva Connections? I think you've mentioned it now that, Yammer equals, Viva Engage. Could you maybe just touch that one last time? Yeah.
Yeah, and Viva Connections is a little bit different. Viva Connections is more of I'd say a landing page, or I characterize it more as like an intranet landing page. It has other capabilities. It has like some dashboard components where people can take sort of individual actions on the Viva Connections page. We do have a feed web part that is available on the Viva Connections page that does bring in content from Yammer and from Viva Engage. So if I come to that landing page, I can see content from communities that I'm a part of, or maybe announcements that have been percolating up through some of the communities I'm a part of. But it's sort of a very surface level experience, Heather. When I click on one of those conversations, it sort of brings me into the deeper Yammer experience, because it's the analogy that I would make is that, think of Viva Connections as sort of like, I don't know what news site you all might use, but let's say the New York Times. So it's like going to the front page of the New York Times to sort of get news and information about your organization. That's certainly a need that you all might have within your organization. But when you actually need to go to engage and participate in even talking about the news, you don't really do that on the New York Times website. Maybe you do that on LinkedIn, or maybe you do that on Twitter, or maybe you do that on Facebook or Instagram, various other places. That's really the equivalent of Viva Engage, right? I'm going to go to Viva Engage and Yammer to actually engage and interact with leaders and interact with other people, whereas Connections is a little bit more of a consumption experience. Hope that makes it clear around the distinction between Engage and Connections.
All right, Steve, I think what we'll do is, that's fantastic. Thank you. I'll just sort of pop this up. Can you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah. So first, Steve, thank you. I appreciate everything. Amazing talk track. For the rest of the folks on the call, if you have a QR code, you can we'll have a survey about this session here. If you can kind of let us know how it went, we would appreciate that. I'm also listing here some other amazing sessions that we have going on for the next couple days. So if you haven't registered or signed up, plenty of time to do that. Please go ahead and sign up for these additional sessions. And again, thank you once again, Steve, for your talk track. And we appreciate everything that you do for us here.
Yeah, thanks everybody for your interest today. Feel free to reach out with more questions. Appreciate your time and participation in our event. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing everybody throughout the rest of the week.